Gosh, every time I hear that gunshot, it absolutely is shocking. Neighborhood Watch volunteer George Zimmerman claimed he acted in self-defense when he shot Trayvon Martin. The family believes race was a factor. He is a 17-year-old African-American boy. Justice Department is going to be looking into just that. Its Civil Rights Division is specifically picking up the investigation, and that could mean that Zimmerman could face hate crime charges. Joining us this morning, joining the panel, is criminal defense attorney Midwin. Charles, nice to have you. Thank you for being with us. So let's first talk about the Department of Justice now stepping in, the Civil Rights Bureau specifically. What are they going to be looking at?
They're going to be looking at two things. One, they're going to be looking at whether or not this was a hate crime. So they will be looking at the actions and activities of George Zimmerman. And as you know, a hate crime is a traditional crime, but with bias. In other words, murder, arson, or traditional crimes. But a hate crime has an additional element to it, which is bias. And the federal government has an interest in protecting Americans from hate crimes because they believe that it's something that lends itself towards terrorism. Because most people would say, well, why would the federal government want to step in on this? So that's one, hate crime. And two is color of law abuses. As you know, law enforcement has wide latitude to arrest and to detain people. And so what the FBI does is they step in and find out whether or not law enforcement has abused that wide latitude. And in this case, it would be in non-action and not doing what
and not arresting George Zimmerman. So when we look at the 911 call, let's play a little bit of George Zimmerman's call to the dispatch at the beginning before all of this even happened, where he said he believed there was someone who looked suspicious. Listen.
Something's wrong with him. Yeah, he's coming to check me out. He's got something in his hands. I don't know what his deal is. They always get away.
Are you following him?
Yeah.
Okay, we don't need you to do that.
Okay.
There are parts of this that I have to imagine that authorities, especially in the Department of Justice, will be looking at to see, you know, is in fact this the part that would show bias and a hate crime? What he says before he shoots Trayvon Martin.
That's right. They always get away. Who is they? And I think also one key fact that they're going to focus on is the fact that the 911 operator at some point said, do not follow him. And yet he still went ahead and did that.
You know what I thought was interesting? They have like a rules for Neighborhood Watch. And the rules, we should throw them up on the screen, the Neighborhood Watch Manual. It should be emphasized that members, they do not possess police powers. They shall not carry weapons or pursue vehicles. They should be cautioned to alert police and deputies when encountering strange activity. Members should never confront suspicious persons who could be armed and dangerous. And apparently, George Zimmerman, who was the sole member of this community watch in his neighborhood, never registered his neighborhood watch group, was not an official neighborhood watch group. Well, I mean, I think it's an interesting development.
And he violated all of those rules.
Exactly.
Yes. Every single one of them.
But also what jumps out of this, if you don't get out of the vehicle, there's no altercation. No one gets shot. If you listen to 911, if you listen to what you're told to do, you simply follow them. You can see what's going on. But also, you made a judgment that he looks suspicious based on what? A pair of tennis shoes and a hoodie? Is that really what it's all based upon? And so I have people who are trying to say, well, you know, Zimmerman, he's trying to keep folks safe. Yeah, but he shot and killed somebody based on just looking at them and saying, I think he's doing something bad. That's crazy to me.
Here's what George Zimmerman's father said about his son. It's a statement that he released. He said, George is a Spanish-speaking minority with many black family members and friends. He would be the last to discriminate for any reason whatsoever. His name is Robert Zimmerman, and he said this in the Orlando Sentinel.
George Zimmerman's race, I think, plays nothing in this. I don't see what kind of contributing factor it is to whether or not he's capable, as you describe, of a hate crime. I think you could theoretically have a hate crime where it's black on black, Hispanic on black, white on black. What I'm curious to know is, you know, is it Sanford? The Sanford Police Department is still investigating this case. Is that right? So the suggestion that the Department of Justice is going to step in is that Sanford's investigation is lacking. Is that correct?
Well, actually, the Sanford Police said they turned it over to the state attorney's office. And you also now have Florida Governor Rick Scott, after DOJ made their announcement, said he wants the state officials to also step in as well. So Sanford Police, they've actually stepped away from it and given it over to the state's attorney.
Lack of action, and the fact that the George Zimmerman they never did a drug test, they never did an alcohol test, they haven't arrested him. You know, there's no dispute over whether he shot Trayvon Martin. He's not saying it wasn't me.
He's admitted it.
Right, and that lack of action is what you would call a color of law abuse. I mean, I think this case is reminiscent to the Emmett Till case. I think a lot of people look at the facts and say, wow, this is very similar. Young black man perhaps in the wrong place at the right time and all of a sudden ends up dead, and local law enforcement does nothing.
It'll be interesting to continue to follow this case as we're doing. I know you broke that information for us about the DOJ stepping in last night.
Yeah.
I was sleeping, but you...
I was still awake.
Yeah.
Always keep that cell phone on.
Midwin, nice to have you. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.